Here we go. I'll put it down like that. Now, what do you make the time, Chief? Well, I reckon it's... Well, go, right. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to St Mark's again. We thank the church again for their beneficiary of allowing us, so I give a wave to the young lady at the back who's doing the sound, who's doing an amazing job as normal. Thank you very much for letting us come here again. That's it, come and take a seat. Hopefully we're going to get some better news tonight. I said I'd be with you to the end, so I've blown off lots of other meetings. I want to hear some really good news tonight. I'm really excited. I was told not to speak too long, but to point out that they have got some clocks that actually work. When we go to Borough Hall, there's not a single clock in the whole place that's on time or works correctly. So hopefully, Chief, you'll have some better news for us on things that pertain to Cleat Hill. Sorry, I was supposed to... I'll let the Chief Executive of the Borough Council explain who we've got and why we haven't got lists of people here.
Okay, so thank you for coming tonight. I think you all know who I am now, and Mayor Tom has just done an introduction. Just to explain that, unfortunately, Paul can't be with us from HSE tonight. He's actually flying back from Scotland, which I think was one of the issues with him speaking to you on Monday. The signal wasn't very good. He's actually on an aeroplane. And apologies from Councillor Gribble, who is at a parish council meeting. And I think, as you all know, or probably all know, Richard Fuller has actually got an adjournment debate about Cleat Hill in Parliament. He was probably at the end of the day, so he was probably speaking at about 5 o'clock to 5:30. And I haven't had a chance to listen to it, but I know he will have been asking lots of questions on your behalf. Did anyone manage to hear it? Good? Good. Do you want to just give us a brief, someone give us a brief summary of what he said then? He asked... Oh, hold on. The microwave is on its way.
He covered just about every question that we've asked here. He managed to sum it up. Even some of the things where perhaps we might have different shades of opinion, he managed to encapsulate the whole lot. He gave some very good thanks, including for St Mark's, which I thought was amazing, and also for yourselves, emergency services, but he was very pertinent in terms of linking the July to the October events, what needs to happen going forward in terms of borehole drilling in the UK. So just about everything that we flagged, he flagged. Insurance, house prices, he really made a stab at everything. So we wanted to cheer when he'd finished.
Good. Shall we do a cheer for him now then? Oh, Deborah, can you just come back? Could you give the microphone back a minute? So did the minister who responded to him say anything helpful? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. I apologise for that.
Not massively,
Okay.
although two things were noted. They welcomed the official application from the Borough Council for additional funding, and I think the door is open for that.
Right.
And will be looked on probably favourably. It's hard to sort of unpick the parliamentary language as to where they're going. So there was that. And she did say that they've had conversations with insurers, but I don't know that they've been a lot more successful. She was saying similar things to the gentleman that we had on the screen back somewhen. Yeah. Who knows? They kind of suggested that maybe our house prices would recover. So who knows whether that was whistling in the dark or whether that had substance to it. So I think probably. She did say she would take things away and look at them, and they would continue their conversations. Obviously, they were in conversation prior to the adjournment debate today, but that'll be ongoing, I think.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, it was helpful, I think, just for everyone you can listen to it, so you can probably watch it on Parliament TV as well. I couldn't find the absolute time when I looked this morning. 5 o'clock. It was almost dead on the time. That's good. So I can give you I'm going to be Paul and BGS in one go, and I will be reading my notes. So in terms of what's happened because you know that there's been quite a significant change in the weather over the last few days. So there have been 2 drops in barometric pressure. So on the 15th of November, which was just at the end of last week, Friday, the pressure dropped from 1030 millibars to 1020 millibars, so 10 millibars over a period of 24 hours. And then on the 19th of November, the pressure dropped from 112 millibars to 997 millibars. So that's 15 millibars over a period of 12 hours. So quite a fall. So there have been no changes in the level of gas readings across the site. So that was one of the things that we've talked to you about, the tests needed of that big drop in pressure. I'm now at the limit of the information and what else I can say to you, but I'm happy to capture questions if you've got any more about that and take them to get some people who can answer. We've also been in correspondence with the insurance industry, and I said to you, I think the week before last, that we've been asking about the insurance companies, and particularly when you're not in your property in the 30 and the 60 days. What they've come back and said to me is that is being dealt with on an individual insurance basis, but if there are any particular examples where that hasn't worked and you haven't been able to have those discussions positively, to feed that through. So if there's anyone who has got some specific examples, Ray, I know you raised that you had done it and there'd been a charge, they will look into particular cases. So if you've got particular cases, please give them to us, and we can follow through on that. I have, in fact, got quite a long report from the insurance industry, but as I think it probably reiterates what he said to us when he was on the call about that their view is that kind of evacuation supporting you is our responsibility. He's even quoted some government legislation out, so some nighttime reading of all of the different bits of legislation that they've looked up. So it is a more detailed report. I just need to read it, and then we will take that information and put it into the frequently asked questions on the website. So we are continuing with the work that we're doing around police presence on site and private security. And I'm now going to hand over to Catherine to talk a bit more about the cordon and some of the next steps. That's all right.
Good evening, everyone. Right, it's just to let you know that as of, I think we've agreed 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, that the cordon will remain in place, but it's going to be such that people, if they choose to do so, can return to their homes, because I know there's quite a few of you who wish to do so. That won't be everyone. It's been put in place by the group that have been overseeing the investigating, per se, the multi-agency one, that there will therefore be a waiver letter, for want of a better word. I haven't got a copy of that with me now, but I believe that'll be emailed out, won't it? But in essence, signing effectively that you understand the risks, and that in going back to your homes, you understand that. So in essence, as of that 10 o'clock tomorrow, those will be emailed out, and you will, if you so choose, be allowed back to your properties. The advice very much still remains that we advise against that, that all the partners here advise against that, but we appreciate the position that you're in. So we will be strongly advising anyone who approaches the cordon not to go through and ask them to sign that waiver. If they do so, refuse to do so, then that will be recorded by the officers on the cordon, and I can go through in a bit more detail the steps that they'll be taking. We will remain with the same cordon officers that we have, a sergeant and 5 that we have there, and they will still be retaining the same cordon. At this point, I'll just mention that in terms of the bottom of Cleat Hill, where there's been concerns about the residents who haven't been evacuated, we're going to have the road sign still there. It will still be closed, but the officers will move back to where the footpath crosses by the pedestrian crossing. The footpath will still be closed, but the officers will be there, but it will allow free access to those residents who have not been evacuated but have been caused this difficulty because they're technically within where our officers are. So that will change as of tomorrow, and this letter will go out. In terms of anyone then who goes up to the cordon, we won't be enforcing the powers on a cordon that we'd have there, so we won't be forwarding any potential legal action at all, so people can go through that cordon. If you go up to the cordon, you'll be asked to sign the letter. That'll be recorded on the officer's body-worn video, and we will be retaining a copy of that letter so that we can keep them all there. They'll be signed, dated and signed, and we'll be making a record on our incident command logs so that we've just got a record of who's going through. If someone doesn't wish to sign the waiver, then that will be recorded by the officers and recorded in the same way on our control systems. I think that's the primary update at the moment in terms of the cordon. Okay.
Thank you, Catherine. So we've also talked to you about work that we're doing on risk assessments of each property, and I'm going to ask Jim Davis to come and talk about that from Fire and Rescue.
Good evening, everybody. Over the last couple of days in particular, but even further back than that, we've been working to put together a methodology that looks at the risk to those that will be within the cordon, including those in their homes, in order for us to be able to look at the specific risk based on the type of person and the type of property that's going to be involved within the cordon. We've worked with our partners, such as British Mines Service, the UK HSA, so the Health Security Agency, fire and rescue, the Health and Safety Executive, to look at the way, as well as BGS, the British Geological Survey, in order for us to have the right people with the relevant competencies and accreditations in order to be able to make the best judgment on the risk that's being posed. The risk assessments, I say, they will be premise specific, but they'll also take into account the person that's within the premise, obviously because of different reasons, vulnerabilities, etc. In order for that to happen, we're really looking at 3 broad areas, and that is the way that the building is constructed, that will allow gas to permeate within the building itself and build up. The way the measurement of gas within the soil or externally to that premise, as gas actually made its way to the external perimeter of the building, and then of course any gas readings within that building. That really gives us a really clear idea as to how each particular premise is behaved based on the way the gas has behaved up to this point. And I will stress that's up to this point. As you all know, at the moment this has been rather unpredictable, and it will continue to be unpredictable until it becomes more predictable, which is unpredictable, unfortunately. So in order to get that kind of group together to talk about this level of unpredictability has been challenging. I'm not going to mess any sort of, or kind of jump around the bush about this, but we are in a really good place now. We've got the relevant people undertaking with the relevant skill sets that gives us really clear data about each premise. That will give us the ability then to provide a very clear overview about, one, the risk posed, both currently and hopefully then secondarily once we've got the monitoring equipment within that premise. It's good to understand how the building will behave based on the gas and its construction, but that's only as good as the information that we know right now. That doesn't mean to say that it won't change in the future, and the only way really of safeguarding against that, if your premise is affected by its construction, the gas on the external and potentially internal, and that's with the gas monitoring equipment that we've already talked about. So this risk assessment will very much inform that type of monitoring equipment that's going to be required, and as I say, it's going to all be done on a very much an individual premise and person basis. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. So in order for us to do those risk assessments, we need to be able to access your property and for a member of our building control team to look at how it is constructed. So if your keys, the police have already had your keys or have your keys, it's more than likely that we have done that survey already. So we've completed 17 properties in 2 days. We need to be able to access the rest of them. So the team, who I know you've been receiving phone calls from already, will be, if you haven't left your keys, they'll be contacting you to make the arrangements to get your keys so that we can go in. We can only do these surveys in daylight, so we need to be able to have the keys during the day, but the team will contact you to do that. So we've made good progress on those over the last couple of days, and we'll be rolling that out in the rest of next week. So you'll get those calls. How many of you here would still need to give us keys? Oh, nearly everybody. Okay. So that's the work that we are involved in at the moment. We also need those surveys so that we can make sure that the monitoring devices that we're providing to you are absolutely right. And I know that you had an opportunity to have a look at the Rockwall device with Rockwall, and he demonstrated it to you on Monday. So that's a room device. What we just want to look at is, depending on the construction of the building, whether there might be something that monitors in void spaces. So that's why we need to know how your houses are constructed. And that's the bit of work that we are now doing. So we will phone you, so you don't need to phone us about the keys. We will start doing that tomorrow. Okay, that is everything that we wanted to say to you tonight. So it's now an opportunity for you to ask questions. And I would just stress again then, if they're more technical than us, we will be capturing those and then we will feed back on them, if that's all right. So I'm going to do my tried and tested method now of starting at the back with Joe with the roving mic. So any questions? Gentleman on this side with the glasses.
The waiver you mentioned, just so I'm clear, that's a broad-based waiver. So if you want to go back for half an hour, 10 hours, overnight, the weekend, that covers all that sort of thing.
Do you want to come over here?
In essence, at the moment, as it stands, they will be on the cordon, and it will be each time someone goes to cross the cordon, they will sign the waiver. Obviously, we'll have to see how that progresses going forward. So if you're going for 10 minutes, you're going in for the day, then you'll still sign the waiver, but that'll be up for review as it goes along.
Okay, thank you. And also, for the borough, are these monitors still on time, on schedule for the 6th of December, as far as you know?
As far as I know, but we just want to check that that's absolutely right for each property.
Thank you.
May I ask, I mean, you've had the keys from our house for some time. We've not been contacted about doing the risk assessment. You said if you've got the keys, they've probably done it. Can you tell me if they've done mine? Not necessarily right this second, but...
I won't be able to tell you right this second, but we'll confirm the ones that we've done. So if we've had your keys, it's likely they were done, but we'll be doing that checklist, but I can get them to confirm that. You just have to remind me, although I've got it in my notebook, which property.
Okay.
Or if you can speak to Deborah or Claire or Joe at the end, or Ben, who's here as well.
Okay, and can I have a second question around how... Is there a predicted date when the risk assessments will be completed? Are you doing it by like Wagstaffe and then Glenrose, or are you just doing it from the back to the front? How are you doing it?
We've done it from where we've had the available keys at the moment.
Right.
So we'll do as many of them as we can. I'd have to go back to the building control officer to check what order he's doing them in. But at the moment, it was around the availability of keys.
So there's no particular end date at the moment on when that risk assessment...
So I think that we talked at the last meeting on trying to have them done.
Yes.
Yeah. We hope. We're hoping by Tuesday.
They'll all be completed by Tuesday.
That's what we're hoping for.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So I think we've pulled our building control manager into doing this work. So if he's done 17 in 2 days, that leaves roughly a similar number and a bit more to do, isn't it?
And the other question, I guess, is just clarity around this waiver in terms of if we go back, picking up on the point of my colleague here, you can go back, like I've asked to go back tomorrow to do some work in the house for a few minutes. But I could go back and stay there if I sign the waiver forever. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, but the waiver, the details of the waiver, we won't see till tomorrow.
We will be issuing that to you so you can have a look at it. It needs to be, we're just doing some final checks on the wording of it. So yeah, I actually have got a question from the Teams chat about the waiver, which I think is from Di Johnson. Will signing a waiver to say residents are returning home at their own risk, could this invalidate their house insurance?
Yes.
So that's a question that we will go back to the house insurance industry and check out on your behalf. So of 2 at the back, was there one on the back row?
Me, 10 o'clock tomorrow, I can turn up at the cordon, sign a waiver and go home at my risk.
Yes.
And by your action plan, the monitors should be in by the 12th of December? 6th of December, there was a milestone there.
So there's a milestone, but just want to check. So what we showed you was a monitor that you can have in a room.
Sure, I get it, it could be different.
So what it might be, you might need something, and you might know this about your house, as to whether it's got a space between the ground and your...
The man did the thing for us today, did a risk assessment. It's a straightforward build, all the
Okay.
where they should be.
Yeah, so that's what we're just looking at, to make sure that that monitoring picks up on some of those void spaces as well. So Joe, can you start coming forward then? So H?
Yes.
Yeah, is that where you are? Yes. Good, okay.
Can I just ask, we happen to have 2 keys for the front door of the house, which we have on our persons in our alternative accommodation. But I think somebody mentioned that you require, for the gas check-in at this stage, you require access to the garage as well. Is that correct?
Yes, we want to be able to check the garages to make sure that there are... So what the assessments, and Jim will probably talk a bit, is we're looking for the structure of the building, and also where you might have gas pipes, water pipes,
Yeah.
telephone lines.
Yeah.
I was going to say telephone pipe.
All my stuff like that is in the garage.
Okay.
So I appreciate that. So my garage key is in my house. I don't particularly want to go back there and go sign a waiver into a cordon, out again, so on and so forth. So I'm quite happy, got all the time in the world, I'm not working, when somebody rings me to arrange me to go into the house.
For you to be
I
there.
can just go and
Yeah.
get the key in 10 seconds and everything can follow.
Yes. So
So
if you, when they phone you, just
Yeah, I'll
say
discuss that
you'll
with them.
need to be there because you've only got the one
That's right.
garage
I'll
key. Brilliant.
confirm it with them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to clarify about the risk assessments, you said should be done by Tuesday. Can you give some indication on when we might be informed of the results of that, and whether those houses that have been done already, whether that will be before or after Tuesday?
So we'll have done them all on Tuesday. We just need to give ourselves just a bit of just to make sure they're all consistent. And then can I come back to you with a confirmed date of when we will be sharing them with you? So I wouldn't want to give you a date without having just made sure I've got all the right people to do all the reviews of them as well.
Okay, thank you.
That makes sense?
Yes, thank you.
Good evening. I have a few questions, particularly around the cordon. I think there was a subtle inference from the Chief Superintendent on Monday that they'd look at dropping the cordon. What's changed to say that that's not going to get dropped? Secondly, what is the criteria for reducing the cordon back to a sensible area in and around the borehole? I'll go with that for starters.
Shall can I hand that to you, Jim?
It was the police that actually said it, so not the fire.
Yeah, it's kind of linked to what the general information is. The police, in fairness, that they're only upholding what the detail of the scientists are really saying. So it was a hard thought process of looking to, and it's still our priority is to reduce the cordon as soon as safely as possible. At the moment, it's just the timescales that we've had 2 drops in pressure. We're having some changes to the current weather, so all of those are really good signs. It's just we want a little bit more stability in regards to timeframes, just to make sure that what we're seeing in the readings remain consistent. And that it's just a case of time to say, actually, heavy rain, and again, at some point, we will be looking to reduce the cordon But at the moment, we just want to make sure that the readings remain consistent. We undertake the risk assessments in each of the homes. We understand that the readings remain 0 in those homes whilst we're doing it. Once we've got all that information, then I think we'll be in a much better place to look to reduce the cordon size.
So I'd like to see some numbers. So you say risk numbers are consistent. We've heard for several weeks now that the numbers outside of the borehole have been consistent. They've been consistently low, background noise.
That's right.
So there doesn't seem to be a scientific reason to keep the cordon in place, unless there's some other information that we don't know about, and that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, I can only reiterate what we have said, and the thing that makes all the difference is the conditions that the gas is currently in.
But Paul said we've got to go through a whole season's worth of transitions. Does that mean the cordon's going to be in place for a year? Because that makes no sense.
We don't know the time frame at the moment. That's at the moment, the key is trying to establish the risk to the premises and continue to monitor what's in soil. When that is better known and there's more time, because at the moment we've got a very limited number of resources, and particularly those that are responsible for the scientific evidence. Once we've finished the risk assessments, once we get our place to have a bit more headspace to start considering and to look at the strata and the way that that's behaving, then I think we'll probably get a better indication from those that are supplying that information to give us a better judgment. At the moment, I think that people are just a little bit too unsure because of its unique nature, because of the uncertainty in the way that the gas has behaved so far. I think people just want to be a little bit more secure about the information and the data that we've seen so far.
But can you confirm what we've seen on the handouts, that the background readings throughout both of the closes further away from the borehole is normal and not going up and not fluctuating?
Yes, they've stayed at 0 or as close to it as we can see.
Okay, so I think for me that's, I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand, other than ultra caution and an open-ended statement that this cordon could stay in place for a year, and I hope we're not hearing that, but that's, I think, that's an interpretation of what you said. I don't think that's an acceptable position for most of the residents to be in. We need some definitive criteria that can be measured and can be evidenced effectively to say, well, now, okay, that's what we said we were looking for. That's what we've been achieved. We can let you go back in now and we can reduce the cordon. Because without that, a lot of people who have got a very, very low risk appetite will not be going in anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I can only reiterate.
So, okay, so it goes back to the next stage of all of this is we're talking about risk assessments. Those risk assessments are there to provide information, I assume, although I'm not 100% certain, of what monitoring needs to go into each particular residence.
That's right.
When that is completed and that monitoring is put in place, is that the time to remove the cordon? Or is this still fear factor still going to be at play about the weather could change?
Yeah, so as I've said, and I think what we're not sure about is how the gas is going to continue to react. So we'll undertake the risk assessment based on the premise and the person. That doesn't mean that the gas is going to behave any differently in the ground over a period of time. So the monitoring within premise is there as your backstop to say if it does change its direction, its course, its permeability, then it's going to be a really early warning signal to those within the premise. We'll continue to do the measuring and the sampling in ground and in air during that period as well. So if we do see any fluctuations, that's when the risk assessment will change, because actually the conditions would have changed as well. Currently, we're just too early to be able to say, to really understand how the ground is going to continue to behave as the conditions change along with the atmospherics. So once we're a lot clearer, then I think what we'll be able to understand is potentially how the ground is going to continue to react, that will give people a much better idea. But with the monitoring in premises, because that's where the risk is, if it comes up out the ground outside, it basically dilutes itself almost instantly. There is no risk. The risk is those within the premises. So the cordon isn't necessarily high risk for that area. People transverse in and transverse out at some point, hopefully quite soon. Where the risk remains within that area, if there's a premise or a place where that gas can build up over time and reach that, that limit that we've talked about before, 5 to 15% in air, which is its explosive range, that's when it becomes so much more dangerous.
Okay, I think I've still got a couple of questions about the cordon. Sorry.
Me or?
No, this is definitely a police question.
All right, I'll pop back if you need to.
Sorry.
Sorry, can I ask a question around the risk assessment, please? So, given what you just said, yeah, in regards to the risk assessment, and you started off by advising that your advice is not for anyone to move in, how confident are you that the mitigations that you're putting in place on the risk assessment is suitable for people moving back in?
We're confident once we know that the control measure or the monitoring has been installed and been tested, we'll be confident enough to say it's reading where it needs to be reading. How confident are we that it will read the gas at the right time, at the right place, and tell you about that really is way more unpredictable. But we're certainly confident enough to say there's a control measure for those of you who want to return home with the level of risk, and I think we've always been really clear about that we cannot reduce it to nothing whilst we do not understand the way that gas is going to continue to behave.
So in short then, there's still a higher level of risk for people moving in?
Not a high level, no.
Okay.
And I think it's really difficult to measure high because everybody's feeling of high is different.
Mm-hmm. And the other question, I think the last question for me, the handouts that I've been seeing for the last few weeks, the readings that are being shared, are they like an average reading or a set time of the day? Because it's just like one reading that comes out that you share with us.
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's an average.
Yeah, it's an average over time.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, but back to my questions about cordon. I think there was a comment made by Richard in Parliament about signing waivers and removing the responsibility away from this group back onto the residents. And I don't think that was a particularly palatable thing he was suggesting. I'd have to check back and revisit it. But if we go back, does that mean we can come and go freely? Or does that mean, you said we'd have to sign in and out every time? That seems to be an infringement of our liberty, to be fair.
Yeah, I see what you said. As it's been put at the minute, each time you go in and out of the cordon, we're asking you to sign the waiver. But obviously, as residents, I think that's something we can look at, see how it pans out over the next few days.
Okay.
But yes, as it stands at the minute, so we can get it in place, we will ask you to do that.
And secondly, assuming that we're back in our homes, having signed that waiver, do I also assume that we'll be allowed deliveries of food and things like Tesco's or something like that, or will they be refused entry?
As it stands, if people, when they approach the cordon, the first thing we will stress is that we advise strongly that people don't enter the cordon, but as long as they sign that waiver, then people will be allowed to enter the cordon.
So Tesco's deliveries and Ocado and all of those people would have to sign a form?
Yeah.
Well, they wouldn't be aware of that. Because every delivery driver is different every time they come. So,
yeah, I appreciate
so again, that could impact residents' ability to get food.
And I think some of these concerns we have to take back, but yes.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out some of the logistical issues of what you're
yeah,
suggesting.
I accept that.
That's,
yeah.
And the final one, which is a bit flippant, is I'm assuming my dogs don't have to sign the waiver when they come and go between the park every morning.
No, well, no, that's what I mean.
Thanks.
So just for clarification, if you're making us sign a waiver, which puts the onus back on us, have you considered, for us, what insurance company is going to support us in a claim if we've said, the police are saying no, they're saying, yes, you can go back, but on your head be it. I mean, it's a double-edged sword. No insurance company is going to say, yeah, we've got you covered. If the police are saying don't go back and we're signing away our rights as such, what insurance company is going to, if it does go bang, are going to, you know, sort us personally or the premises? What you're actually proposing is completely worthless for us. Because unless we can go back knowing we're insured, who dare go back?
I think that was raised previously, and that's something we'll take out.
Well, it was raised before. Have you, the Gold Command, the group that are making these decisions, ever thought about us going back to homes? You're dangling us a carrot saying, we're following the science, we're following the science. This is the science that said you go back. But if you go back, it's down to you and you ain't going to get insured. That's basically what you're saying.
So
Without trying to be offensive, you know, that's what you're
we
saying.
have said that we will follow up on that issue about insurance. So I don't think it wasn't we didn't answer it, it's we don't have that answer now, but we will follow up on that. Okay, thank you. Joe, do you want to move forward?
Can I confirm that this is a liability waiver that you're asking us to sign? So you're saying that there's an inherent risk if we visit the property. Are we signing a legal document that shifts liability to us? Because if that's the case, if I'm popping into my house to collect my passports because I don't want to be outside of my house for Christmas and I'm going to Jamaica, why would I sign a legal document to accept risk to go into my house for 10 minutes when we've been allowed to pop in to collect items, having had you check that the property is safe at that point because you'd have done the checks? I'm just trying to understand the introduction of the waivers and the difference between someone who's saying, I am accepting the risk to stay at my home, and somebody who's saying, I am accepting that you're saying to me that this space is safe enough for me to pop in to collect specific items.
I think so the difference between what we've been doing now, which is where we've been doing that assessment, going with you, and you just want to go and collect something, I think we will have to take away. So that it isn't really to cover that you quickly popping in, but we're just trying to get a process in place.
And then kind of my next question, if there's a document being introduced to transfer risk, because I'm going to be very clear, I do not have a high-risk appetite unless I'm speeding down the motorway. Sorry, I do that sometimes. That being said, at the point that we're saying that we're a little bit more certain about the safety and the level of risk, am I going to get a document that's the opposite of that waiver from the powers that be that says, we are guaranteeing that this space, this area, your home, is safe enough for you to inhabit? Because I am hearing a lot of uncertainty, unsure, not sure how the gas will continue to react. This can change in the future. It remains unpredictable. On that basis, I'm never going to be comfortable to go back. I'm just being honest. I've moved into this house on the 28th of May. I do not have that attachment. I am scared. Speaking about it, I am scared. I'm trying to control that fear. I've never suffered with anxiety, but I'm really anxious about bringing the children, my family back there. He might be fine. He can go. I'm not bringing my kids there. So do we get something in reverse that says, this risk is very low, and we think that it's safe for you to go back? And that's what I'm looking for in reverse.
So there are a few things that you have been asking us over the past few weeks that we still are working out what we can do and what it would look like. So one of those is that certification piece of, we are saying to you that it's safe, and also that you're saying how that you can pass that information on to other people. So that's one thing that we still don't have all of the answers on, because we are going to different organisations to try and understand and get that. So that is not simple at the moment. We are still working on it. You've asked us to look at how the site of the borehole and the development there and how we deal with that, and also how that might be registered. So we're still following up on that. And the other area that I think you said Richard has talked about as part of his discussion is that what does that mean for property values and how that feeds through. So I don't have all of the answers to those, but they are some of the things that we are still working out. And we know that that for you is collectively are three really important issues, but I can't answer that at the moment. What we're trying to do with the risk process, the assessment of properties, the monitoring is mitigate some of that. The next thing is all around that process of the certification. And that is, as I think Paul talked to you about the meeting before, around all of that. So there are some things which we know that you want answers for, but we haven't been able to do that yet. Not for want of trying.
I'm the same as Owen. We're scared to go back, and we've been free to go. I went yesterday because British Gas were meant to come and they didn't come, and I was there nearly an hour and a half, 2 hours. They were doing the assessment. So they checked it. There were so many people in the house. We were there. They left us there for a bit and came back. But, you know, the situation hasn't changed. The risk is still the same. So I'm not going to sign anything just to go back for 10 minutes to pick something up. Also, we're not in a stage where we want to go back. We have carers, as I said, 4 times a day. The carers change all the time. So how are they going to send carers to look after our mum? They come from the council. They're not going to want to look after her. They're not going to want to enter the house.
So specific issues, I think it's better if we have a one-to-one discussion about particular cases, if that's okay.
But what has changed for us to be able to sign is just to pick things up. And also I've noticed before the police were doing the rounds, because our gates are open, going around the back of the house, and so were the gas checks. But I've noticed on the last few days they haven't been doing that, only the front and then come back. Why has that changed?
I'll have to check into that and come back to you about what the gas checks are on site are happening. Do you want to pick that up, Catherine?
So I presume you were catching the patrols going into the back gardens before? Well, they should be, so I can take that back and ask them that that's still the case. I mean, I can't answer about the gas checks, but yes. Are the police officers with those doing the gas checks, are you saying, or just the gas checks?
No, the police and the gas checks, they both aren't been going around the back.
Right, well, I'll certainly check up on the police ones, yes.
Thank you.
And we'll check up on the gas situation. You've got someone else in that row.
Sorry, we went back in yesterday, but we were allowed in our house, but without Cadence checking the gas traces. So which used to be the case previously, but this time we were allowed without checking the gas.
There must be some miscommunication, I think. So the police didn't do the check properly. They didn't do the check. They allowed us. Then somebody came in, and then they asked they asked apology, but I think the regulation is not keeping up properly.
Okay, what number are you at?
9 Glenrose Avenue.
So that happened to us as well first. So they waved us through, they said you can go, and we actually drove to our street and outside our house, and then they all came running, the police, the fire brigade, and the council, I think it was, I can't remember his name, and he goes, oh, sorry, there was a misunderstanding, you shouldn't have passed. And they didn't even sign us there and then. We drove by, and then they came to us afterwards, and they go, stop.
Okay, so the police team briefing Catherine is doing tomorrow morning. So we will just make sure that that is really clear and people know what the process is. I will also feed back to our officers who are on site, the LALO. So that's the local authority officer that's on site to make sure that we are doing the processes that we've said to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially police, actually. We insisted we have to stay in the Mousebury car park, but they asked us to follow them to in the house. So it's better to check, please.
Okay, we will look at that.
So the other question regarding the housing, we've been receiving calls from Borough Council regarding whether, how long we would like to extend the temporary accommodation. So what should we be saying to them? How long we should be extending the accommodation for?
So we can't say a confirmed timescale for that. Could I ask that you're having those individual accommodation discussions back with the team at Bedford, and they will talk you through what your options are? Is that okay? Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, good evening. Thank you very much. Just need to ask a couple of questions to get clear in my head, please. With this waiver that we're to sign, if I go, right, I want to go back, I sign the waiver, I then think, and I say I'm going to stay the night. In the night, I'm thinking, do you know what, I don't want to be in anymore. I feel scared, I want to leave. What's going to happen to me after that when I sign and I go in relation to, say, you've been great at being able to give me a little bit of funding to help with life costs that have changed for me over these last few weeks and what have you. So with that waiver sign, how does that affect that moving forward, please?
So I think we need to have those as individual discussions. So happy to have the discussion about your particular circumstance and what your thoughts are. Because I think probably if you go back and you don't feel comfortable there, that's the next discussion with us. So I think those discussions again are on an individual basis.
Okay. Obviously 10 o'clock tomorrow is when the time changes happens. There's not much time for me personally, because I've got to go to work tomorrow and I'm going to be at work at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. So what's the availability of me after this meeting being able to go back to my property, sign it, so just like it has been for the last few weeks, to do anything I need to do now before I want to sign a waiver, please?
We're not ready for those arrangements tonight, so we can't let you in tonight.
Okay. So with that, we're wanting the keys to be sorted for you for next week. Is there ways that I can leave keys with tonight with people to then take it forward? Or is it something I've got to wait for someone to contact me to then arrange and then try and sort out over the coming week, really? Because we're here, because I'm here now, I just feel I can give you my front door key now.
Could I ask that you have an individual discussion with Catherine around that? Sorry, Catherine. Yeah, if you could have a discussion with Catherine about that.
Okay. And finally, just to clarify, obviously it's been mentioned a bit tonight, every time I've gone back, I've sat in Cleat Hill car park by Moseby Park, and they've gone and assessed to make sure everything's safe and what have you. Just to clarify, if I think, right, I'm going to go and do that, that will not be happening. Any of that will be happening of just someone going, checking my property, checking, seeing, yeah, you can go in.
We are still doing the gas checks, but with MRSL doing them. I think what's part of this discussion is some people haven't had that experience more recently, and we will come back and say, this is the process. When you come in, what's going to happen? Yeah.
Just a final one. I'm very sorry, guys. I'll be very quick. With that waiver, so I'm just asking, because I'm picking up there's a lot of fear still to people, still fear for me, want to go back. Is there no way that we could have two types of signing, where one is, yeah, I'm happy, I'll go back, I'm cool, I'm going to chill there now and stay there, and other people, look, I just need to go back for 10 minutes. I just want to go back. I don't want to sign a waiver, but I want to feel safe to go back for 10 minutes, then I'm going to go back to whatever my situation is, please.
Helpful feedback from us for tonight about, we know that there was a different feeling, and that's something that we can take away from this meeting. For those people who just want to pop in, collect things, check the house is all right, check on, get a document. Didn't you do that last week?
2 weeks ago since I've been there.
All right.
So if that's
Yeah.
the case, that'd be really.
Yeah.
For me
Okay.
personally, I feel much more comfortable to sign for going in for 15 minutes and then
Okay.
going away
Yeah.
at this stage. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'm going away from the waiver now, but I was in my home at the time of the explosion and I felt a tremor. If I'm one of the few that don't want to go back because I have so much fear and I've only been in the property 18 months, but if I even consider about going back, I'd like a surveyor to survey my house and have a certificate at the end of it. Would that be possible?
Can we
Because-
have an individual discussion about how you're feeling and what issues there might be? I think if you think that your house may have been impacted, we need to have a separate discussion if that's all right.
But sometimes that doesn't come out until 2 or 3 years down the line. You might have subsidence when you want to sell the house and it comes back in like, you know, because of that. But
It's quite an individual circumstances, so if you wouldn't mind, can we have a separate
Okay.
discussion?
okay.
Yeah, I'm just struggling to get my head round why we need to sign this waiver. What is the purpose of this waiver? Surely you can log, you know where we all live, you know who we are. You're saying that you're releasing the cordon, or not releasing the cordon, you're giving us access through the cordon to our properties. So why do I need to sign a waiver to get to my own house?
Because we're not releasing the cordon. The cordon is there because we've talked to you, all of the time about our concern. Our purpose is around your safety.
Yeah.
Until we've done all of the work that Jim has been describing on the risk assessment, the cordon is staying in place. But I think we're recognising from the discussion that we've had over the last 10 days that different people are feeling differently about things. So we're finding a way where you can, if you want to, understanding that we don't have all of the answers, you can go back.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you're going to do the risk assessments, which will give us more confidence in our individual cases to go back. That's all very positive, but the waiver to me swings the liability back to me, and I don't think any of us residents should be taking that liability risk back to ourselves. So I appreciate you're trying to keep everybody happy and you're not going to release the cordon, but you are going to give us access into our house, which is great. But I still don't see why we have to sign a waiver, which ultimately is going to affect us later on. When insurance prices go up, if there was an ever incident, we'd never leg to stand on. So you're actually giving us nothing. You're actually giving us nothing that none of us should move back in those houses unless something else is put on the table.
Okay, so you've given us your view about how you're feeling about it, but what we're trying to do is think about the different places people are in, the choice to go back. So if you still feel not comfortable and that isn't the right place to be, we're still supporting you on not being in your home.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I need to see, obviously we haven't seen the waiver and we don't know what we're signing up to. We don't know whether it's a legal document or whether it's just a log to say that we're going in and out of our houses. So it's hard to comment on that, but I don't like, a waiver to me is like if I hire a car and I smash the windscreen, I'm liable for the windscreen. So I just don't like the waiver. I think that term is wrong. So unless you can prove to me something different, then I'm really pleased that you're letting us go back in our houses, and at 10 o'clock tomorrow, that's fantastic news, really good news. And the risk assessments are going to be done by Tuesday, the gas monitoring is going to be done by the 6th of December. But even on the 6th of December, with all the gas monitoring in place for the injured people, and the cordons potentially still in place for another 12 months, are you saying that we're still going to sign a waiver?
So I think we've been open with you about that this has been a process that's been gradual and we're giving you different information. So when the situation changes and we're not in a position that there's a cordon, you will be able to go about your business in the normal way. It's just we haven't been able to lift the cordon.
Okay.
Do you want to talk a bit more about the cordon?
Yeah, I understand that, but what I'm saying, even if we agree those risk assessments are done next week and all the gas commitments being put in place, you're still saying that you're going to leave the cordon in place, yeah? And we're likely to have to sign a waiver to go through that cordon. Even though we've got all the risk done, we've got the gas monitoring in place, we're still going to have to sign a waiver to go through that cordon.
Okay.
So if we waited till the 6th of December when all this is in place, we're still going to be in the same place as at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
So I think probably roll it back just a smidge because I think we've moved on massively. The term waiver, I think I completely agree with you. Having not, if I'd put myself in your shoes, having not read the information that's been drafted, I'd probably come to the same conclusion as you. You know, waiver's probably a word that's, like you say, you associate with liability being what this document is. It's an information document to give you an understanding that what you're going to be presented with regarding the hazards and risks going into that area. That area at the moment, as we know, is unpredictable and we're not able to clarify whether or not there will be movement of gas whilst if you decide to move back to your home, and I think you talked about it on Monday, all this is just to give people the ability to be informed to be able to go back to their
So
home.
really it should be the terms and conditions of the cordon, not a waiver. All it needs to be is the terms and conditions of the cordon.
I don't mind what badge you give it. Yeah.
The waiver is just...
Yeah, again, I think, we're getting caught up on a word.
Yeah.
Once you've seen the content, I think...
You get caught up in a word, but that's a very important word when you're trying to battle with your insurance and your buildings in the future.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
But like I say, I think over time, that we will not, I'll let you come in.
No, it was just to clarify this issue on the cordon.
Yeah.
If we take the cordon off, that is when we have done all of the assessment about what the risk is and the mitigation, and the cordon doesn't need to be in place. So if the cordon isn't there, you don't need to sign or whatever we're going to call this statement.
Yeah.
Because that means that we don't think that cordon protection is needed. What I think is we can't give you today when the cordon might be lifted, but we are always reviewing it based on the information that we've got. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and it's hard to come in without seeing the document that you're trying to put in front of us, but I'm just trying to get the point across, really. But thank you very much.
Yeah, so that's the point. So we're trying to allow that flexibility around the cordon, and because the risk position has changed. We're in a different position than we were 5 weeks ago. But we still can't, we haven't got the monitoring in your homes. We haven't done all of your individual risk assessments. So that's why. So we are advising you that the cordon is still in place. But if you do want to go back to your homes, we're trying to be more flexible on that. Christina.
Hiya. Just sort of a question really around the building control. Can you sort of explain a bit about what those risk assessments look like and whether they're sort of following a standard sort of BAU requirements, or is it something that they've looked to, like, have they sought further advice from professionals like when dealing with an explosion?
So that will be some more detail that we'll have to come back to you with, Christina. I haven't got that here tonight. Edith?
Hiya. So I'm still a little confused. So hopefully we're not going to call it a waiver because it's not a waiver and we shouldn't be signing it. Now, I am outside the 100-metre zone. Yes, I would have to come through the cordon potentially if I want to bring the car in. But I shouldn't have to sign anything, therefore, if I come across the golf course and go into my property because I'm outside of the zone. Just like Douglas Close, just like the people that are inside the zone, living in their properties on the park. So I'm a little bit confused because we're still getting inconsistencies.
So when we are taught, the 100-metre zone and the cordon are different things.
Absolutely. So what are we signing for? To go through the cordon or to go through live outside of the zone?
You're signing to go through the cordon.
Okay, that's fine. So it will be an information leaflet, not a waiver. Because that's not a waiver, because what am I waiving for? I'm driving through it. You give me the information, that's entirely my choice. And I'm quite happy to sign an information leaflet. And are we able to drive our cars through in that instance? Yeah? And also, instead of signing this daily, surely to God, you know, you have apps, you have the information available. If the people do want to go back home, which there is several of us going back over the weekend, if we do use going through the cordon, why don't you register our vehicle registration numbers?
So I think Catherine answered that she's happy to review that after the first couple of days.
Okay.
I think is what you've said.
I think that's it, really. Thank you.
Thank you. Lady in the cardigan.
Thanks. I understand the need to kind of sign to go in and out and the access because the emergency services, at the end of the day, just want to know how many people are in each property in case an issue arises. So fully get that. Again, waiver, perhaps not the best terminology. Also, so with the cordon, obviously that's still in place at the moment. If the cordon miraculously vanishes, is Cleat Hill suddenly reopened to the normal volume of traffic that go up and down there, or is it just residents to Wagstaffe, Glenrose, Cleat Hill?
So if the cordon goes completely at the top and bottom of Cleat Hill, that road becomes open again.
So then the general public, you have, you know, however many hundreds of vehicles that go up and down Cleat Hill every day, that I just don't understand how you can go from having this cordon in place for so long to suddenly no cordon, air of caution gone, and a massive volume of traffic now going up and down Cleat Hill. To me, that if we're this cautious at the moment, I understand fully why the cordon is in place. They're working within that cordon. I can't get my head around how we go from removing the cordon to Cleat Hill suddenly being reopened. That's a main road in and out of Bedford. But the risk is still there with the same issues of this gas potentially moving underground.
So we'd be reviewing the cordon, including on Cleat Hill, when we've got all of the information, so the information that we know what's happening with the gas for so I think Jim is describing that the key risk is in the properties when the gas builds up.
I understand that, and another question I was going to ask, are there any particular homes or style of homes that you're actually more concerned about? Because my parents' house is an Edwardian house, Wagstaffe Close is more modern. Are there particular properties that we're actually more concerned about than others, or is it just a case of every property needs checking?
Every property needs checking so that we're aware of how they are constructed. So we are looking at whether they're on concrete plinths, where the pipes go in, or also whether it is some of the older properties will not be on a concrete plinth. There'll be beams with floorboards or...
Yeah, it definitely isn't on concrete plinth.
It hasn't got a concrete plinth. So we need to understand each individual property.
Okay. I still don't understand how you can go from cordon in place to cordon completely gone and as many people as you want can go up and down Cleat Hill. For the people that have been affected for weeks on end, that to me...
I'm not sure that we've actually said that it will completely disappear. We're yet to understand the way that it behaves. So It may reduce over time. It may just be removed. We're waiting on that information.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so the question down here is about the removal of the cordon. What Jim has just replied around. So there are different options with the cordon, I think, is we could change its shape and its size, or you could have that it is there, just not there. But if it's not there, we will have got all of these assessments that the risk position has changed.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand the risk assessment and the concern about the properties. But Jim has said, and it has been said, that we need to monitor this gas that's underground for potentially 12 months, even longer. So I can't get my head round how Cleat Hill is in that, and then suddenly, potentially, cordon gone, Cleat Hill opened, but there's still a risk and a huge amount of gas underneath Cleat Hill. People that are driving up and down there are not going to be signing a waiver. That's going to come down, you know, on the council's head if it goes boom again.
I think probably when we're talking about the cordon and what we're going to do with it, we probably need to explain that in a bit more detail and spend a bit more time on it.
I fully understand the cordon. I've worked in the emergency services myself for 20 years. What I'm trying to say is at the moment the cordon is in place. If the cordon reduces, changes direction, it's still going to be going through Cleat Hill. That is where the gas is. I don't think you kind of understand where I'm coming from. That there is going to be a heck of a lot of traffic that at the moment is going alternative directions. They don't know what's been going on. They're not going to be signing these waivers that you're going to be getting people to sign to go in and out of their property. It's been highlighted this is going to have to be monitored for a long period of time. That's what I can't get my head round, is like how.
Okay, so we're not at that position yet. So when we move to that position, we will have to look at it. So I think you're asking about Cleat Hill remaining closed for a much longer time, I think.
Well, essentially, yes. I just don't understand how you can go from potentially having a cordon in place to no cordon in place and full access to everyone when, you know, these people have been...
So we haven't said that we're at that stage yet.
I know we're not at that stage yet.
Okay, I think we're not going to be able to answer that now, because I think that will be subject to the review of what the whole situation looks like.
Okay.
Hi. I don't think we really know when the gas appeared through the ground anyway, because it could have been on for some time long before the explosion. We just don't know really, do we? Just because the borehole's blocked, that gas could have been surfacing from quite a long time.
So I can't answer some of those questions around what the gas. I think when we next have Paul or from HSE or someone else around, or BGS, who can talk about that in a bit more detail.
And with signing in and out, surely that's just so people know who's in there in case there is something wrong, rather than not knowing who's in the road and move back.
It will give us an idea of who is round and about.
Thank you.
Hello, my question is also about the gas, and it might not be for Jim, it might be for Paul. I'm obviously not a scientist in any way or form, but from what I can understand, the borehole has now been sealed. It's been concreted to the top. There's obviously some gas in the ground, but it's reading 0. So where the heck is all this gas going to keep coming from that's going to raise our risk levels again? I don't get it. If it's not in the ground and it's evaporating into the air and everywhere else, how is it going to keep going up?
So I'm going to have to park any technical questions about gas, geology, geophysics, because that's